Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE EJB JPA tutorial. In this video, we are going to create message driven bean to consume message of our free shipment queue. Even though we create message driven bean here, we just provide dummy implementation for onMessage here in this video. Later, after implementing the message producer part, we will come back here and revisit because that's the sequence, right? The message producer should place a message in the JMS queue. So once the message is in the JMS queue, then the consumer will come into picture. So that's why here we are creating the consumer. That means the message driven bean, and we will keep a dummy implementation for onMessage. Also in this video, we will reuse or we will make use of our existing stateless session bean, which was created in the very first subseries, and inside that we will add a new method and we will pretend that method is a long running task just by introducing some delay. As usual, these two are not required. So these are all the slide decks from our previous videos on this subseries. In the last video, we created the JMS queue. The queue name is free shipment request queue. So like a stateless session bean, we can mark the Java class as a message driven bean. For that we depends on a annotation. So here the annotation is @message driven. So using this annotation, we can mark a specific Java class as a message driven bean class. The next annotation which comes into picture is activation config property. We can say messaging type is queue or topic using this activation config property. So one can also specify the destination. So @message driven is the annotation. This annotation will contain one or more activation config property. So with one property like an array, the message driven annotation can contain multiple activation config property. We can use one to specify queue or topic and another one to specify the destination. So in the previous video, we created a queue called free shipment queue. Using the super user role, we logged into our Wildfly server. Then we gone into the subsystem configuration and we added this free shipment queue. We also verified that this free shipment queue is present in the full config file. Then we gone to Eclipse and we configured Eclipse to use the full configuration. The full configuration is to load Wildfly with all the subsystem. The default is normal config without full option, so that will not load the messaging or JMS subsystem into the Wildfly. Alright, so using configuration property, we will specify queue or topic and then we will specify the destination. The destination here is free shipment. So one activation config property says it's queue. The next one says where it is. So here we will be using our JNDI. So here we will be using our JNDI name. The MDB implement message listener interface from javax.jms. So that's the package name. And we will be using the Eclipse IDE to create message MDB bean, and you can see it will automatically get derived from, or it is implementing the message listener interface. So the moment it implements message listener interface, we are forced to implement the message handler. The listener demands to implement onMessage handler. So we know that this onMessage handler will play the role of consuming the message and processing it. The container in our case is Wildfly, delivers the message from JMS Queue using JMS API itself to this handler function. So this handler function is the onMessage handler. If you see how the architecture comes into play is using JSPA or servlet, the message producer will add the message to the queue. The queue is configured inside the Wildfly. The Wildfly vendor implements the JMS specification. So as part of the vendor implementation, the JMS API, I mean the Wildfly will make use of JMS API and reads the message from the message queue, delivers it to the onMessage. How it delivers it to the onMessage? Based on the activation config property. Here we specify queue and we specify the queue location also. That means the MDB is claiming that I'm a subscriber to the queue free shipment RAQ. So Wildfly server, by making use of the JMS API, reads the message and delivers it to the queue. Delivers it to the MDB. So once the message reaches to the MDB, we developer will get a chance to process it. So all our processing will go inside the onMessage handler. The handler function receives the message as parameter. So this is the onMessage, right? So that's what here we are saying. The handler function, that means the onMessage, receives the message as a parameter, and inside the handler one can process the message. So there are many message types available. One is byte message. So here each character will be represented as a byte code. The handler should process that to know the exact message. The other message type is a stream message. A stream of primitive data written and read sequentially. So first the message will be written into the queue using the message producer, then the consumer will read it. So it's a stream of a message. The next one is a map message. Map message means it's a key value pair. Key will be string and value will be any primitive type. Say for example a product map, the product name will be the key string and its price may be the value, and the type is a float. Float falls under a primitive type. Object message. Using the object message you can send entire object. The message producer can pack a message in the form of object and they can send it to the queue. The only stuff here is the object should be serializable. So if object is serializable, it can be wired as a stream, and once it reaches the Wildfly, the object message will get added to the queue, and the consumer will do the deserialization and it will construct back the object. Text message. So this message is to send a complete string as a message. The string can be XML also, or it can be any string. So it's up to the user how they process the string. Say a string can be comma separated or semicolon separated. Inside there will be parts which has a pipe symbol, and there will be string. I'm placing single letter here, but you can consider it as a string A, B, C, E, F, G. And the processor will bypart based on these delimiters here. So there are two delimiter. One is a semicolon based delimiter that will give bypart 1, 2, 3, and then a pipe delimiter that will get the subpart 1, 2, 3. So you can design whatever way you want, but here text message is a complete string that can be placed into the queue and it can be retrieved in the consumer part. In this example, we are going to use this text message to book the free shipment, and we will use the caret symbol. That means we will say the person who is booking and the weight of the package you want to send. There may be multiple parts also. For simplicity reason, just for demo purpose, we will be having a string with only these two information. So for example, RAM 41. That means the booking person is Ram and he wants the free shipment to deliver some 41 kg of parcel. Okay, now it is demo time. We will go to the Eclipse demo. So here we are launching our workspace, EJB, coding examples, YouTube, Tube. We will go to our remote interface. In the remote interface, we are picking Stateless Bean, Hello Bean remote. This is the bean we created in the very first part of this sub-series. Or if you need, you can create a new stateless bean, then add the method. Here we are going to add a method get free shipment number. This will return an integer, and we will mimic this as a long running task. So a new function is declared here in the Hello Bean remote. Now we will go to the implementation part. You can go for add unimplemented method. Since I copied the code in the clipboard, I am directly pasting it here. So get free shipment number, that's the method declared in the remote bean. Here in this implementation part, if you see, we are using math.random, and we are multiplying that with a 10,000. That means we will get a 4-digit number, because we are casting it as integer, and we get a number. Then so this will be the shipment ID. To mimic this as a long running process, we are making call to thread.sleep and 30 seconds, 30,000 milliseconds. That means 30 seconds. So we will reduce it to 15 or 16 seconds. Okay, since here we are making use of thread.sleep, the code will ask for a catch block. We can add the catch block. So when you start typing, that time it will ask to implement the catch block using the quick fix. You can add the catch block, or you can hand code it to have this catch block. The next goal is creating the MDB bean. So this is our EJB module, right? Here we will right click, new package, or here we can use stateless bean package. Later we will rename it stateless bean new message driven bean. So we just want to change this stateless bean as MDBs. Class name we will give it as MDB free shipment. So this MDB will act as a message consumer, and by default if you see, the JMS is ticked out here and destination type is queue, because here we are going to consume queue, and in the previous video we created a queue. So I forgot the queue name. It's MDB free queue or free ship. So to avoid the case sensitive all those information, we will go to standalone configuration and we will open a standalone full. Control F, down. Here we will search for free shipment REQ, and Q is caps. Alright, this is our name, and this one is our JNDA name. So we will copy this JNDA name. So destination name, we will provide our JNDA name. Next we will click so bean name is MDB free shipment, transaction type is container, interface, if you see here the interface is a message listener. This is automatically picked by the IDE itself, and here since we are not going to change anything, and by default it shows that inherit abstract method construct from superclass. So we will be having all this, and we will click on finish button. So this will be our MDB bean. So let us check this wizard added code. Before that we will clear some of the comments. And if you see, we have a dummy handler which we will revisit later after writing the message producer code. So this will be our message listener. This is the constructor. This is the class and constructor listener. So this class is marked with the annotation. We will format this annotation. See the wizard, previously we used the Eclipse wizard to create the MDB bean. It added the annotation message driven. Then activation config. This is an array. You can see the marker here. This array ends here. And activation config property. We have property name destination. Property value is our JNDA name. So destination we specified. Then once again we are using this activation property. If need, we will align it. And in the activation property name this time is a destination type, and the property value is Q. So with these two information, we specified that the MDB free shipment class is JMS Queue class. That's the destination type. Then Here we specified using the JNDA name where the queue exists. So in our Wildfly, we specified we are uniquely identifying the queue free shipment REQ queue with this JNDA name. This is the JNDA name. And in the previous video itself, we checked that our Wildfly server is loading this free shipment queue. We also saw that the message looked like an info message, and it states that trying to load free shipment REQ, and we don't see any error in the next coming log entries, so we stopped the video in the previous part. Now we are continuing, and here when we are creating the MDB bean, we specify our queue. So this part tells the MDB free shipment is subscribing to the queue located on this location on the container. The container is Wildfly server. So when Wildfly server receives any message on this queue as part of the message producer, it immediately makes call to onMessage. Why? Because this bean is subscribed to this queue. And when message arrives, the Wildfly server here, Wildfly server is the implementer of the JMS specification, right? So it will ship the queue message to this onMessage handler. And as already told in the previous video, in the previous part of this subseries, the long running task will stay in stateless bean, right? This is the method we introduced. So that means while message is received in the onMessage, we need to access the stateless session bean. For that, we need to add annotation for our stateless session bean. Here, since we are already in the EJB architecture in the sense inside the Wildfly, we are writing code on the EJB side. So we are inside the core EJB architecture. So we can directly use the @EJB annotation, and we can refer our stateless bean. So here MDB bean is referring the stateless bean, hello bean. Here, if you see the hello bean, stateless bean, mapped name is hello bean. Since the mapped name is hello bean, here we are referring that EJB bean name is hello bean. Alright, we will import the EJB annotation from javax.ejb. Then this one will come from our tube coding example EJB stateless bean package. So we will import that as well. Alright, the skeleton is set up here for the MDB. We need to implement onMessage, but to implement onMessage, we should have a message in the queue. So to have message in the queue, the message producer should send that message to the queue. That means from the next video onwards, we will go ahead and implement the servlet or JSP code to push the message to the free shipment queue. That means we will be concentrating on message producer part in the next two videos. Let's start the server once. So I'm copying it. The server is started. We will once again cross check because that's the queue our MDB is consuming, right? So just press the Ctrl F, nothing is happening. Okay. Okay, we can see the JMS Queue free shipment REQ is loaded. We will clear this console output. Now we will add our EJB EAR. Why? Because now it has a new package, and inside that we have a new bean, MDB bean. We will check that. So here the intention is we are checking our MDBs get loaded and we don't have any error. Warning we can skip. Hello bean remote, we added a new function here. So here you can see started message driven bean MDB free shipment with a resource adapter. Okay, so anyhow, here we can see that the wildfly identifies our the MDB bean, MDB free shipment. So these are all stateless beans. So stateless bean can be accessed through remote proxy. That's why for stateless bean we will always check these entries. For MDB bean there is no remote interfaces, right, as already told in the previous slides. So the client will communicate to the MDB using the messaging. So the only way to check that is searching for the entry, and you can see using ActiveMQ API. ActiveMQ is the JMS API in Wildfly, and the MDB free shipment was started here. Alright, now we will go back to the server and we will stop this and deploy it. Now we will remove it, then we will stop the server. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.